Welcome to our webinar, Digital Publishing with QuarkXPress. Today we'll talk about ebooks. What we will show today, we'll talk about what formats are possible to create your ebook and why you need to decide before you start which format you want to take, which is the best one to use. We'll show you how to create a new ebook from scratch. We'll talk about reflow versus fixed layout ebooks. And of course, we will convert a print layout to a reflow ebook and also convert an existing print layout to a fixed layout ebook. And then in the end, we'll also talk about some considerations about publishing to Android and Windows. Of course, we'll show iOS and macOS also. There it is a bit more easy to decide what format you want to use, but we'll talk about that when it comes to it. Let's first talk about ebook formats. Why is this important? That's something that I see when a lot of people want to talk about ebook publishing or just decide to publish to ebook. They don't think upfront what they want to achieve. The interesting thing about ebook publishing is that depending on how you want to sell your ebook, where you want to distribute it, you want to distribute it via Apple or Amazon or your own website, what platform are your readers using? So are they using Android phones or iOS tablets, an iPad basically? That determines what format is really suitable. And goes even further. Is it text savvy, so the content type decides what format should be used, and also whether you have a lot of animations and slideshows and videos that you want to show, and whether your brand is so important that you want to create pixel perfect layouts. All of that is determining which ebook format is the best one to use and should you really use an ebook. Once you have decided that, then you have different formats that are possible to use or to export to with QuarkXPress. The first one is EPUB Reflow. We'll talk about that in a second. Second one is EPUB Fixed Layout. Third one is Kindle, the Amazon format. And of course, you have the possibility to export as PDF. That's something we're not going to talk about today. You can also export as native app for Android and iOS with some advantages and disadvantages, but we're not going to talk about that either. And today we're also not talking about creating ebooks in HTML5 publication format, which is basically a progressive web app, because we showed that last week in our first webinar. So let's first talk about reflow versus fixed layout. I have a little table here which I'll briefly explain. I hope it doesn't take too long, but it's a really important thing to understand. So reflow versus fixed layout. Let's first talk about reflow. Reflow, imagine it like TextEdit or Notepad that you have on your Mac or your Windows, and you have text in there. When you enlarge the size of the window, text is going to reflow. So line breaks are going to adjust based on the space that there is for the text. And that's how you can imagine a reflow format. So it's good for text-savvy publications with some images in there, maybe audio and video. The good thing is it plays almost everywhere. So even if you have a very weak device, it's going to show there. Also very nice is that your content, because it flows, will adapt to different device sizes. So on a small phone, it will show less text and the line breaks are going to be narrower than showing it on a desktop machine or on a large tablet. So that's really nice of that format and really handy. And also for the reader, so the person reading your ebook, they can adjust text sizes, which means you can enlarge it on a smaller device or make it smaller also on your personal preferences. Text again will adjust in reflow, and that helps for accessibility and makes it very adaptive. The disadvantage of reflow is that you have a lot of design limitations. It's basically reflowing text, so you can't decide where the line break should be. Also, typography is really limited, so you don't have a lot of options to use nice typography or even design. So you put a box somewhere, you put an image somewhere, and it might not be there where you placed it because the text, the whole flow, has reflow. Interactivity is limited. It's basically hyperlinks, audio, video that you can do. And it depends a lot on the device what you get to see. So if the device is too weak, maybe you don't even see audio or video. Or when there's no fonts on the device, it could be that you picked a Minion or Avenir font and the device decides to ignore these fonts that you put into your ebook and just shows Arial, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you will probably not even notice. But of course, your reader will see something different than what you have decided to put into your ebook. So your design is being ignored. So that's Reflow. Text savvy, very lightweight, but also limited in some aspects. If you want to have design-rich publications, so a bit like almost like a PDF or print experience, then fixed layout ebooks are probably the better format to use. So you can use a lot of design features. It's a pixel-perfect design, so wherever you put stuff, that's where it's going to be. You can put fonts in there, you can use typography, open type features. It can be really design-rich. Your brand is being maintained, and you can add a lot of interactivity. So you can also have slideshows, you can have pop-up windows that come up, or HTML5 widgets where you display maybe a 360-degree image and stuff like that. So very, very powerful. And that's also the disadvantage of fixed layout epubs, that it's a very high requirement for a reading device. So if you think about weak devices, they might not show anything just because they can't process that, or they might just ignore some larger effects. Also, it's not adaptive because you're designing pixel perfect. It might scale, but it won't adapt from a 3:4 aspect ratio to a 16:10 aspect ratio. And maybe the biggest limitation of these formats is that when your readers, so your customers, your clients, are using an Android or Windows device, then currently there is no good e-reader, so no software available to show a fixed layout EPUB on Android or Windows. It's different for macOS, and for iOS, Apple has a good e-reader for that, iBooks. For Android and Windows, there's other options. We'll talk about that at the end. So almost done with theory. Last thing to talk about, how do you want to sell your ebook? Do you want to sell your ebook? You just want to distribute it, or you want to make some money with it? Then you can decide to sell via Apple. Then the iBook store is there. It's great for fixed layouts, the design-rich ebook type, which is an EPUB kind of type. Or you want to sell via Amazon, which is perfect for Reflow ebooks because of the black and white Kindle devices, which are made best for these kind of books. Or you want to sell ebooks yourself, or just distribute them for free on your own website. And then, of course, you can use any format, but of course you need some kind of store or mechanism to have people download that and maybe pay you some money for it if that's your business model. Big question mark is copy protection. Do you want to protect your ebook? Probably, because you put a lot of work in it. You want to sell it. However, there's no good technology available for copy protection of ebooks. So that means that you might shoot yourself in the foot because you're punishing your customers. They can't read what you created. And then, well, why even do copy protection? So my advice is, don't do your own copy protection. Sell via Apple or Amazon if you need copy protection, or do something like watermark, stuff like that. But enough of the theory. Let's jump into it. Let's create an EPUB. Let's start with an EPUB reflow from scratch. So like for print, I'm going to go File, New Project, but I'm not choosing print, I'm going to choose digital. So note that I don't specify here what format I'm going to export this as. So it could be an HTML5 publication, it could be a native app, or it could be an EPUB. The only thing for my EPUB reflow that I'm specifying here is the size of the first page. That's something special for EPUB reflow because it's going to adapt to my device. I'm also choosing automatic text box. I'm saying OK, and there's my first page. In my first page, I'm going to first import an image, and these images and text that I'm going to use, they come from Project Gutenberg, where you can find a lot of public domain ebooks, and that could be nice for seeing how some ebooks look like, and also for maybe getting some sample text and images for trying out things. So here I'm not going to win a design prize. I'm just going to do some artwork. I'm going to make an image here. Let's make this smaller so that's the size of my page. And all about coffee is going to be my text, my title. Let's just adjust this here a bit so that I can see it a bit better. Here, transparency like this. And this is going to be a screenshot. So I don't need to worry about that there's going to be wrong text. I can use any kind of text. My second page, I'm going to import my coffee text. Just double click that. I have 76 pages here, and I have some text. So let's not worry about text formatting. What I want to do now is I just want to export that as an EPUB reflow and have a look how this looks like. Okay. So first thing I need to do is I need to auto tag my layout. Tagging a layout just means what content should be in my EPUB. I'm going to tell QuarkXPress to do this automatically. We'll do that manually later. All pages, one article per story. Okay. So next thing is file export as EPUB. Important thing here only is I want to take the EPUB type as reflow. Save that. I'm going to collect fonts. So fonts are being embedded. So if the reading device values that, then I'm going to see the font here. And what happens is iBooks, so the default EPUB reader of Apple, of macOS, is opening this. And I can see here's my title page, right? It's basically a screenshot. I can't do anything with it. And the rest is going to be text. And this is live text. So I can actually select this and do something with it. So that's a quick way of adding content to my EPUB. So what if I want to add another image into my text? So the easiest way of doing that is I'm just going to create a new picture box, and it doesn't actually matter where I put that. So I'll just put it here on the side. The reason for that is that reflows anyhow, so there's no pixel perfect layout or anything. Just I need to tell QuarkXPress where that image is going to go. And for that, let's just go here after the 1380 references. I'm putting my cursor in here, and now I'm going to put in a callout anchor. Insert callout anchor. And I'm going to associate this callout anchor with my image. I'm done. And what I'll do next is I'll export as EPUB again. Same like before. I'll replace this. Fonts, yes. And here's my EPUB again. You can see here is my first page, and the preface now shows this image after 1380 references. So that's a nice way of adding any kind of image into the text by just putting a callout anchor in there. Of course, I could have also put the picture here, and let's just export this again. You can see what happens here. EPUB, export, replace, collect fonts, right? And you can see there's no difference. The reason for that is it's a reflow layout, so it's not going to value any of the layout elements or any of the layout decisions that you made. What I made here is I told ebooks that it should use a wider format, and you can see that here it is breaking after his, and here it's breaking after broad. The image is always going to be after the 1380 references. So that's really what EPUB Reflow is all about. So, though my layout isn't very nice, let's just do something to show you what the difference between Reflow and fixed layout is before we do some real life examples. So if I export this again, I'll export this as EPUB, but this time down here I'm choosing the fixed layout variant. Let's just call this something else. I'll save that, collect fonts. You can see that now when this opens in iBooks, we can actually show both things, right? My cover is the same, but now I'm getting a different layout. Now I'm getting the layout the way I had it in QuarkXPress. You can see here is my reflow, here is my fixed layout. Let's just have the layout in QuarkXPress beside the layout in iBooks, and you can see that everything that I had, though it's still selectable text in QuarkXPress, is now also shown in iBooks in pixel perfect, the same way, the same line breaks, everything is exactly the same as in QuarkXPress. So that's really the difference between reflow and fixed layout EPUB from the same layout. And now let's go for some real life examples. Remember this layout? That's the exact same layout that we used last week to show how to create an HTML5 publication out of a print layout. I'm going to do the same thing here that I did last week, just this time it's going to be an EPUB. I'm going to duplicate the print layout and I'm going to change it to digital. Say OK. And now what I'll do is I'll export as EPUB. And I'm going to export it in the same folder here. And I'm going to first use EPUB type fixed. Save. I have images missing. I don't mind for electronic delivery here, and I'll collect fonts. I'll say OK. Again, my iBooks opens, and you can see now I have my first page as a screenshot. It's my cover page. That's the difference. In HTML5 publication, this was still live text. But when I go to the next page, you can see that this is my EPUB fixed layout and looks exactly like in QuarkXPress. So pixel perfect, everything in here that I had before. Okay, so that's converting a print layout to a fixed layout EPUB. What's happening though now when I export this as a reflow? One reason why I want to do that is maybe because I'm publishing to a different device. I don't care about layout. I wanted to adopt to my page size or device size, and I just really care about the text, about the content, not so much about the layout. So I want to use reflow. Let's do that. I'll do reflow, and yes, I can replace that. I don't care about the images. That's okay. Put everything in here, and what you can see now is my first page looks the same way as before because that's the screenshot. My second page doesn't look good. My third page definitely doesn't look good, and all the others also don't look good. The reason is that everything is kind of just in a random order. The question is, why is that? The reason is QuarkXPress also did some auto tagging here, like what we used before. It worked fine for that coffee book, but it didn't work fine so much here. So let's have a look at what QuarkXPress did with tagging. It's good for articles. In articles, my article palette, I actually see all of the elements that are part of my Reflow ebook. And since I don't like that, let's just start deleting everything. I want to do that myself. First page is fine. That's going to be my cover page anyhow. But now I want to order or specify what gets exported in what order. So what I will do here is I'll create a new article. Of course, I could name it and I'll call this proven capability. I'm not going to do that for every article because I think that my webinar will take really long. So what I'm going to do now is, though, I'm going to take this text box and I'm going to add this component 1. Then I'm taking this text box and it's my component 2. So this is going to be my first article. Then my new article here that I'm doing is I want my image in here. I want my quote in here. And this is fine too. Next article, let's just go for 3 maybe, is again my image that I have here. And I have some text and I have some more text in here. And maybe I want the image to be at the end. And so on, right? I would tag the rest. Let's not do that. Let's just have a look what I have done with tagging. I'm going to go for export as, epub, reflow, export this, save, fine. I'm missing images again, say okay. Let's have a look how this differs. So my first page, again, is my screenshot, which is fine, my cover page. And my next one, remember what I did? I tagged, let's get rid of this one. I tagged proven capability and then the text here. So this is the next one that I had in here. Then I tagged another article, this image, and the quote. So this is in here too. And the third one was the text, and at the end there was the image. So only the elements that I tagged, nothing more, right? I can't go further, are being displayed in my epub reflow. And when I go to the little icons here and I'll go to a table of content, I can actually see only the articles that I had. So the proven, the new article, quote, and the new article 1. So tagging basically tells QuarkXPress what elements to export into an epub reflow and which ones to keep together. So it's kind of a grouping and also a decision what gets exported. So before we conclude this webinar, let's have a look at what happens on Windows and on Android. Last year I would have said, well, if you're publishing fixed layout EPUB, it's not very good on Windows. With Windows 10 and the Edge browser of Microsoft, this has changed a bit. Let's have a look at the files that we created earlier. So here's the EPUB that we created with the fixed layout, where if I go here, remember just put the image somewhere into the layout, and it actually looks quite good. So you can select that. You can see Edge is actually doing a quite good job of displaying that. Of course, for Reflow EPUB that Edge is going to open here, you can see kind of even better quality. So after 1380 references, we had this image, and Edge is displaying this correctly. That's good. Now, so you can use Edge to actually read EPUBs. I can zoom in here. What about the print example here for the brochure that I created earlier? Somehow starts from the end, but you can see all of the Reflow EPUB that I classed is being created here and also looks good. And the last thing, the print example fixed layout, even that looks okay. And I can see maybe here, when I zoom in, yeah, doesn't look too bad. Also is live fonts here, and if I zoom further further. If I go further here, you can see it actually has become quite good in recent versions of Windows 10. For Windows 7, I guess that's going to be an issue, but Edge is actually becoming quite good in displaying epubs for fixed layout and for reflow. The only other thing that is still an issue is the Android platform, because there is no good EPUB reader. iOS and macOS have iBooks, and Windows 10 has Edge built in. So one thing that you should look at is actually in Chrome, there is a project Redium, and Redium started as a Chrome extension. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to launch this Redium here, and I'm going to drag all of my 4 elements in here. We need to wait a bit until it's imported, not too long. There they are. And let's just have a look at this EPUB here. Yeah, looks okay, right? This is the fixed layout EPUB that we created. So it looks okay in Redium. Perfect. And let's go back to my library and let's have a look at the other one. This was my brochure where I had the proven capability. So the EPUB reflow from my print, and you can see, yeah, that looks actually also nice. And here, that headline, that is something we need to fix in our next webinar. So for Windows, I think we're getting there. We're getting a good EPUB reader. For Android, the Redium 2 project that is at a very early stage looks promising. So maybe when we talk about this next year, we don't have that issue for Android and Windows anymore. So quick recap. What we learned today, we saw the difference between reflow and fixed layout EPUBs. We learned what we have to think about when we publish in the different formats, especially for Android and for Windows. We saw how we can create reflow and fixed layout from scratch, and we also saw how we can convert a print layout in different EPUB formats. Where we didn't have time anymore, and what I really want to show you, and that's going to be the topic in our next webinar next week, is going to be interactivity in EPUBs, both reflow and fixed layout, auto tagging with styles, Kindle export, post-processing, putting in or fixing metadata, hyperlinks, table of content, and much more. So I will show you that in the second part of our ebook webinar. Some additional resources, if you're already curious what we're going to show next week, is Calibre, Sigil, Redium 2 we've seen, EPUB check and Project Gutenberg we've also seen. And I'm going to list the URLs underneath this video in the comments. So if you're curious, then please have a look. Otherwise, I'm going to show you that next week. If you want to try any of the things that you've seen today, you can go to quark.com and try the 7-day trial version, which is functionally unrestricted for 7 days. And everything have shown you today, you can try with the free test drive.